or interest in witchcraft at the beginning was pretty light. Some good luck charms, some, cleansing their house with sage.
They would have these candlelit ceremonies, and they would talk about ridding themselves of hexes.
Misty says Irenia made herself the leader of their little coven.
Irenia was just kind of known for getting involved with people that were younger than her. It seemed like she went for people that could be easily manipulated.
But after a couple of years of innocent seances, Misty says their ceremonies took on a more ominous tone.
Misty said sometime in spring of 2005, Irenia first started just constantly complaining about a hex that had been put on her.
Part of the reason she began to believe Irenia when she said that a hex had been placed on them was the fact that a number of Irenia's dogs began to die, as if someone was poisoning them.
Misty recalls how other dark omens started to befall Irenia's coven.
Another way that Irenia Cotner convinces Misty that a hex has been placed on her is by drawing a connection between the hex and the bouts of depression and migraine headaches that Misty has suffered from.
While there was no proof the ailments were caused by a hex, Irenia was very convincing.
Irenia Cotner just had a very controlling personality, and the group was somewhat passive.
Irenia told Misty that the hex had been placed on them by a woman Irenia claimed was a witch, Lindsay Kasinger, who police know as the pregnant woman from the crime scene. Misty shares another detail that connects Lindsay and Irenia: Jackie Jackson, the father of Lindsay's unborn child.
Irenia knew that Jackie was with Lindsay, and they were going to have a baby. That may have very well been the moment when she snapped.
Whisper in the night dark, footsteps in the backyard, shadows dance on stained walls, blood rust every nightfall. Fear grips like chains tied, chasing you in moonlight. Eyes gleam with twisted clay, no escape from me.
What up, home slices? What up, home fries? And what up, homes of other varieties? If you are new, welcome. I'm Emily, the Fine Art Medium. I'm a psychic medium who specializes in the paranormal, but also has a degree in social deviance from University of Kutztown. But anyway, so in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Hex-Removal Murder that took place in 2005. As always, I will put the sources down below for like the articles that I'm reading from and where I got all my information. And yeah, I mean, we're just going to go right into it and talk about the case, go through the case details, and then have a discussion of any paranormal elements, any psychology elements, and so on and so forth. But yeah, let's crack into this. Now, if you've never heard of this case, I honestly didn't hear of this case until I started researching cases related to paranormal incidences. And yeah, so this case is essentially about a witch coven that goes to try to murder a pregnant woman and her baby to help remove a curse that she, or a hex that they call it, that she allegedly put on the witch coven, and it resulted in the deaths of, I believe, 2 people, but not their intended target. But yeah, let's go into the background here. So to set the stage, let's talk about the people of the house. We have Jacqueline Bennett, which is the mother of Joshua Bennett. Then you have the boyfriend of Jacqueline Bennett, which is Lee Jackson. And then Lee Jackson has a son named Jackie Jackson. And Jackie Jackson, the son, has a pregnant girlfriend. Okay. So, Joshua Bennett comes home from the army. He's taken a break. And he wants to reconnect with his mother. And so they have dinner, all of them, at that house. And then I guess he spends the night with them all. Now, Lee Jackson is away. I guess he's at work or something. I forget what they said in the articles. But he's not there when this happens. But essentially, while they're sleeping in the middle of the night, a witch coven comes and invades their home with the intended target of being Jackie Jackson's pregnant girlfriend. But then you might ask, why? What the heck? Well, allegedly, Jackie's girlfriend put a hex on the coven, and in the eyes of the leader of the coven, and her name is Irenia Kotner, she tells and convinces her coven that in order to break and remove the hex from them, they must kill her, Jackie's girlfriend, and the unborn baby. And if they do that, the hex will be removed. However, the coven, at first, gets the wrong person and gets Joshua's mother and injures her. I think it's like a knife wound to the neck. And then Joshua gets stabbed. As he's hearing, screaming, he wakes up and trying to protect his mother. He gets stabbed. And then Jackie Jackson grabs one of their pew-pews that they have in the house and shoots one of the intruders. And it's chaotic. It's a mess. And so that is like the brief summary here. But now we're going to go into this article. It's like an interview with some of the people here. But it starts with the girlfriend of Joshua Bennett. And this is a snapped article on oxygen.com. And she was talking about how she was on the phone with her boyfriend, Joshua Bennett, and how they were getting ready for dinner. And that was like the last time she spoke to him. Then, early in the morning hours of August 23rd, Richland County Sheriff's Deputy Robert Blythe was dispatched to Jacqueline's home after a frantic 911 call. When Blythe got there, there was a pregnant woman that screamed at him and that someone was shot and somebody had been stabbed and they were all inside the house. Blythe walked in and found a man crawling across the floor, bleeding profusely. He then spotted Lee Jackson's 23-year-old son, Jackie Jackson, who he knew from town. He just yelled out his name and said, "Robbie, I shot him," said Blythe. On the kitchen floor was Joshua Bennett, bleeding from multiple stab wounds. A knife lay at his feet. His mother, Jacqueline, sat in another room bleeding from stab wounds to her neck. Jackie told Blythe that the man he shot was an intruder who had stabbed both the Bennetts. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but were too late to save Joshua Bennett, who died from a fatal stab wound to the chest, according to Evansville, Indiana, NBC affiliate WFIE. Jackie explained that he lived at the home with his father, who was at work. Jacqueline Bennett and Jackie's pregnant girlfriend, 17-year-old Lindsay Kassinger, Josh had come over for dinner the previous night around 3 a.m. While sleeping in the basement, Jackie heard a commotion and ran upstairs with a loaded gun. He saw two men in black clothing and ski masks stabbing Mr. Bennett in the chest, and by Mr. Bennett, it is Joshua Bennett, in the chest and abdomen, said Henby. Jackie struck one of the intruders in the face with the butt of his rifle and shot the other while wrestling over the gun. After dropping the gun in a panic, Jackie fought with the other assailant. He had grabbed a knife and stabbed the suspect in the inner thigh on the suspect's right leg, said Blythe. Following his stabbing, the attacker fled, leaving his partner bleeding on the floor. Kassinger ran to a neighbor's house and called 911. Authorities fanned out over the county and put out an APB for the wounded attacker. Meanwhile, detectives tried to discover the identity of the other assailant who was fighting for his life at a nearby hospital. Before slipping into a coma, the man identified himself as David Lindner. He would only identify his co-conspirator as Ricky. So they asked, "Why'd this happen? What's going on?" And he said, "The lady put a hex on us, so we had to kill her," explained Henby. Also at the hospital was Jacqueline Bennett, who said she woke up in the middle of the night and went into the kitchen where she saw the two intruders. They attacked her, and her cries of pain awoke Joshua, who ran to her defense. He saved his mother's life, but it cost him his own. He heard his mother needed help, and he went, no questions. He was a hero, said Hopper Talbert. Jacqueline told detectives she had never met David Lindner before. She was equally dumbfounded about his allegations that she put a hex on him. Around 8 that morning, a hospital in the neighboring Lawrence County, Illinois, contacted authorities. They said a man had come in several hours earlier with a stab wound to his leg. Then Illinois State Police Sergeant John Waggle traveled to the hospital where he encountered 38-year-old Oscar R. Eck, limping out the front door. The R stood for Richard. He said everybody called him Ricky, explained Henby. So how was Irenia Kottner involved in the murder case? Waggle asked Eck about his injury, which he claimed happened while installing drywall. Likely story, right? As they spoke, they were joined by Irenia Kottner, 34 years old, and Jenny Wolf, 20 years old, friends of Eck's who were there to pick him up. Irenia was very, very nervous. To me, she was visibly shaking, her eyes downcast, Waggle told Snapped. Waggle questioned both women who denied having any knowledge of the attack. Despite their suspicious behavior, they were released from custody. Investigators interviewed ex-roommate Misty Gangloff, 22, who also claimed to have no knowledge of the attack. In the home, however, investigators noticed a book on witchcraft. Upon seeing witchcraft literature in the residence, it would confirm suspicions that this was witchcraft related, said Waggle. Gangloff was brought in for questioning and said she and Eck worked with Kottner and Wolf at Walmart. They were friends and shared a fascination with witchcraft and the occult. Kottner, who was a decade older than both women, styled herself as the leader of their coven. They would have these candlelit ceremonies, and they would talk about ridding themselves of hexes, attorney David Williams told Snapped. Gangloff said that in the spring of 2005, Kottner told them Lindsay Kassinger had put a hex on them, which again is the girlfriend of Jackie Jackson. She said the only way to lift the curse was to murder the pregnant teenager and her unborn child. Prior to his relationship with Kassinger, Jackie Jackson had been in a 4-year relationship with Kottner. A little suspicious. Investigators next interviewed Eck, who said Kottner had also convinced him of Kassinger's hex. He admitted being involved in the murder plot and to recruiting David Lindner, who believed himself to be a warlock. On the night of August 22nd, Kottner gathered Eck, Lindner, and Wolf together for a seance. She told them the flicker of her ceremonial candles indicated the time was right for Kassinger's murder. Kottner would not join them on their mission, but would enlist demons to protect them. She said Kassinger's murder had to be completed before the candles had burned out. While Wolf waited in a vehicle outside, Eck and Lindner entered through an unlocked kitchen window and encountered Jacqueline Bennett. They stabbed Jacqueline thinking she was Lindsay because it was dark in there, said Henby. Josh then came to his mother's aid and was killed. After Jackie Jackson came to help, shooting Lindner and stabbing Eck, Wolf drove Eck to the hospital and disposed of his bloody clothes, according to the Journal-Gazette Time-Courier. So what happened to Irenia Kottner? Irenia Kottner, Jenny Wolf, and Oscar Eck and Misty Gangloff were arrested and charged with first-degree murder and home invasion, according to the Times-Courier-Gazette. Before he could face justice, David A. Lindner succumbed to his injury, dying in March 2006 at the age of 30. Misty D. Gangloff was sentenced to 7 years in prison after pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in June 2006 and released in 2013. Oscar Eck pleaded guilty to 1 count of first-degree murder and was sentenced to 20 years in prison in July 2007. He is scheduled for release in 2027, when he will be 60 years old. Jenny T. Wolf went to trial in April 2008 and was found guilty of first-degree murder, home invasion, and conspiracy to commit murder. She was sentenced to 32 years in prison and is scheduled for release in 2040. In October 2006, Irenia Kottner was found guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy of first-degree murder, and home invasion, and later sentenced to 57 years in prison, and she will be eligible for parole in 2063 at the age of 93. So yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. So those are the details of the case. So based off of the questioning, the articles, and all that, it's safe to say that the type of witchcraft that this coven, I shouldn't put them in quotes, but that this coven was involved in, to me it's obvious, but to those watching, maybe it's not so obvious. But when you practice a type of witchcraft that calls for the murder or the unaliving of another person or being, typically, that's not a good type of witchcraft. Now, witchcraft, in general, as a title, it's a very broad category that kind of is the collection of many different types of practices and religions and cultures. So, the stuff that I do could be considered witchcraft depending on the culture. And witchcraft, in general, is not necessarily something that's negative. Now again, depending on the culture, religion, or background a person's from, they might see witchcraft as something that's negative. Especially when you're in any kind of Christian or Catholic religions. Witchcraft in general, no matter the type of it, is all seen as bad. But we know that for everything that is in existence, there is a good version and a bad version. Just like Christianity and Catholicism, there is a good version and there's a bad version or negative version. The same thing applies to witchcraft. Not all witchcraft is negative. There are many different types of witchcraft. There is witchcraft that leans more towards nature. Then you have things like dark magic. Now, dark magic, black magic, however you want to call it, it's usually something that has to do with negative intentions. And I want to say misuse, but to them, they would say that's wrong. But it's a particular vibration that's lower than what I would consider the base level of frequency or vibration, and they practice more darker things and have darker intentions. To me, that is more on the negative side of witchcraft. I know people will argue with me about that, and that's okay. I am not an expert when it comes to witchcraft because that is not my area of expertise. All I can tell you is based off of experience and based off of how I perceive energy and frequencies on where things fall in those categories. But based off of what they were doing, I can tell you that it was falling pretty low on the frequency scale. And while I feel like working with demonic entities is a not good idea, a not so great idea, other people will disagree, and that is a-okay. You can have your own opinion. That's what's great about living in America. You can have your own opinion. It's just my opinion based off of my experiences. I have never had a good experience with a demonic entity, but there are those that have had good experiences with demonic entities. But some of the people that were in this coven worked with demons. The type of ritual that they did, let me go back here. And, okay. So they were thinking about whether or not they should shoot her or stab her. However they should murder her. Obviously not good, not a good look. But they would have to go to a remote location and open a gate to hell. So passengers and the baby soul would go to hell. I'm sorry, but to me, that ain't positive witchcraft. And then it was said that part of the spell included inscribing the intended victims' names in candles, which was performed by the leader of the coven, Cotner. And the candles were then lit, and Cotner said the deed must be completed before the candles burn out. Yeah, the whole thing with this ritual is murder, and that's effed up. If you suspect you're under a hex or a curse or whatever, if your first instinct is to murder or unalive another person, the place in which you're getting your information is dark. I'm sorry to say that, but it's dark. And those who are in the dark occult, you could agree or disagree, whatever. I really don't care. That's where I draw the line with any unaliving and the hurt of another person. Yeah, nope. We will not be harming people. But yeah, that's the thing. Not all witchcraft is evil. But in this case, this witchcraft was, I'm going to say evil. And I'm not ashamed to say it because, again, my opinion. But harming or unaliving another person or being, that's evil. I'm sorry. Not sorry. And yeah, like I was saying, when you're in dark magic and you're doing dark rituals and you're working with dark beings, it might be fun and dandy at the beginning. Maybe you're getting everything you wanted in the contract that you have with this entity. Great. But there's always a price. There's always consequences. And even outside of that, there's always a consequence to any action, whether it's negative or positive. In this case, they did it or attempted a negative action. Well, they did a negative action by murdering Joshua Bennett and trying to murder his mother, even though they thought it was the other person. But regardless, the action in of itself was negative, and now they're suffering the consequences, as they should, because that behavior is FUBAR. And if you don't know what that word is, I've been saying it a lot, but go Google it. But yeah, that's not cool. And when you work with negative entities like that, a lot of times they'll try to convince you into doing some screwed up things, especially in this situation, the unaliving of Kissinger. I'm sorry if I say your name wrong. The pregnant woman. No. So this case is pretty obvious to me of whether or not it's all psychological or paranormal or both. I'm sure each person has their own psychological issues, but in this case, this is more paranormal and the influence of negative entities because they were working with negative entities, doing the type of witchcraft that they are doing. Now guys, when you do witchcraft of any kind, you are opening yourself up. So even if it's good witchcraft and you have the best intentions, you always have to be careful, especially for those who are energy sensitive. You're going to attract things, both good and bad, and you just need to understand your boundaries and how to cleanse properly, because anytime you do that stuff, there's things going to want to communicate with you. There's things that are going to try to manipulate you into doing bad things. It's just whether or not you listen to them. And in this case, this coven listened to the leader who thought she knew what she was doing because the candles flickered. And if the candles flickered, in her opinion, that's saying, oh, there's a hex or whatever. There are many different ways to see if you were hexed. Now, there's a lot of backwoods witchcraft things. I say backwoods. Some people say old folk magic. Some people say Appalachian magic, depending where you're from, in the United States at least. Or if you're somewhere else in the world, there are many names. There are many things you can do to see if you're hexed, or cursed, or have anything going on. The fact that they're working with negative entities, they pretty much doomed themselves from the beginning, in my opinion, because, like I said, everything comes with a price. You want something from a specific entity, or you want a specific, like, negative entity to help you get to a certain place, or, I don't know, material things, or whatever. Like I said, there's always a price. Whether they're feeding on your energy, whether you're giving up your soul, whether you're doing it on the behalf of somebody else's health or life, whether or not you're being haunted, but that's part of an energy exchange again, there's always a price. And sometimes you might notice bad luck things, or a series of events that might seem unfortunate or unlucky, or I don't know, just like something you obviously didn't want happen, like a flat tire, or you just keep getting sick. And it's not just like one flat tire. Like, you'll have a bunch of things back to back to back to back. Okay? And so, just for the Irenia lady to be like, oh, my candles flickered. I mean, I'm sure there was more to it. If you're somebody that's a witch and you've been practicing for quite a few decades, as it seems she was, I'm sure there's more to it, and they kind of spun it a certain way in the story to make her seem even crazier. Because, you know, that's what the news people do sometimes, especially when it comes to things in spirituality. I don't know. Things of similar notions, right? They always try to make the bad guy look way bad or worse than they really are, just because it's what sells. Now, I'm not saying that they're making her look worse than she is. Not saying that at all. She committed a crime and she got punished for it. So, yeah, I'm not trying to say they're making her look worse, but I'm just saying there is that potential that they add, or not even add, but like make it or narrate it in a way to make the person look even crazier, if that makes sense. I don't know. But as someone who studied witchcraft, I'm sure Irenia and those in her coven are very knowledgeable with certain things in that area. But sometimes it takes more than just reading a bunch of books and knowledge to know what you're dealing with, if that makes sense. Like, the only reason I know what I know and can do what I do, yes, I've done a lot of research, but it also comes with personal experiences. And I've had some FUBAR experiences with some of these entities. I shouldn't say some of these entities, a lot of these entities. And if you don't have discernment, or you're totally brainwashed and can't see the red flags, you might have a difficult time. And I'm sorry if this comes off as condescending. That is not my intent. I do know that some people, when I talk about this topic, say I'm condescending and I make it like I know everything and that I'm better than everybody else and blah, 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 when that is not true. And I always say this in my videos, that I don't know everything. I'm learning just as everybody else does. All I can do is provide my experiences. And I've had a lot of experiences. That's why I can talk about them. I document every single thing. Every single thing. And so I'm able to pick up patterns. And so when it comes to this topic with negative entities and working with negative entities, not only have I found in research, but I know people that have fucked around and found out because they've worked with negative things, and now their life is in shambles because now those entities are coming to collect. They're there, and part of, you know, ruining the person's life, that's an energetic exchange, because the result of that is the person produces negative reactions, which yields negative energy. That is a feeding source for entities, negative entities. to feed off of and be strong and be able to continue to haunt and oppress. There is patterns to this stuff. And while, yes, we are humans and we only know certain things to a certain degree because it's based off of what the human mind can perceive and understand because we are limited beings inside this body, of course there are other things that we don't know. But the things that we do know, like I said, there are patterns and you can learn from those patterns. And that's what I've done. And yeah, I mean, there are some witches that are not psychic or mediums or what have you. And that's okay. You could still be a witch, not be a medium. But you have to be careful on the entities, the deities, the spirits that you work with, that you worship. Because, let's face it, and I say this all the time, spirits, entities, deities, they lie. Especially when they don't have your best interest in mind. They only, some of them, not all of them, only do what benefits them. And there are some that are on the more neutral side. Sometimes you have neutral beings that aren't sure. You know, not all these beings are all-knowing. Especially when you get to the human variety, human spirits. Some people think that human spirits, when they die, that they'll know all the lottery numbers and they can tell them hidden secrets of the universe. That's not the case. You might get some deities, some gods, some goddesses that might know quite a bit about the universe and knows quite a lot about many things. But again, there are some things that they can and cannot give us information-wise, especially if it will disrupt the balance. Sometimes they only give us things that we need, not necessarily things that we want. There is a huge difference. And monetary things, 3D things aren't something that many people need. It's just what people want. And again, you have to look at your intentions and why you do certain things, especially like if you're in witchcraft or you're working with deities. You don't have to be a witch to work with deities, although some people say that practice falls under witchcraft. I don't care about labels. I only use labels to help educate, to help distinguish certain things from other things. But I'm not a fan of labels because, again, it depends on the culture, it depends on the religion, it depends on your upbringing, and some things, sometimes people consider witchcraft to be certain things and certain religions don't consider that to be witchcraft. So I'm just a person who talks to dead people and entities and spirits and writes that shit down and then I share it to you. That's all I do, really. I mean, honestly. That's really only how I see myself. Yeah, I help a lot of people. I do what I can. But I don't ever put myself on a pedestal, and you should never put me on a pedestal because I am not worth being put on a pedestal. But that's how I view myself. For those who just say I'm like condescending and, you know, nasty, that is not the intention. Am I a goofball at times? Yeah. Do I, you know, joke around and try to have fun and make this a fun educational experience for those watching to help get rid of that fear concept? Yes. I don't want anybody to ever be afraid of any of this stuff. Because again, that's fuel for negative things to feed on. And I'm not trying to create any divisions when it comes to any narratives of witchcraft or practices or whatever. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you have your intention, and whether it's negative, positive, or in the middle, you can have it on one or the other side, but like, as long as you do things with love, that's all that matters, right? But in the case of Irenia and her coven, that was very selfish and very harmful to many people, very traumatic, and you don't need to murder somebody to remove a hex or a curse, okay? And if you're somebody who's afraid of being hexed or cursed, you can literally Google, like, things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do, You can ask a medium, you can ask a shaman, but if you ever get the opinion of someone that recommends any harmful activities, run. Okay. Yeah, I mean, in terms of this case, I feel like it's pretty obvious that what they did was very influenced by negative entities. And I feel like they, in part, influenced Irenia to come to that conclusion that she was hexed. There's a lot of paranoia in her energy, especially when it comes to hexes and curses. And I feel like she's had some really messed up experiences that have kind of made her constantly look over her shoulder. But a part of me wonders too if that has to do with the way she conducted her rituals and her witchcrafts and the stuff that she was doing, her spell or her magic, or spells. If she's doing something that's probably not so great, that's warranting paranoia, because now, oh, I did something to this person and now I constantly have to watch over my shoulder. Probably shouldn't be doing that type of stuff in the first place. Even if you are attacked by another person, okay? It doesn't matter. Yeah, there is some, like, gray magic. I don't know. That's more of, like, a balance between the good and the bad. And, again, I'm not a witchcraft expert. But if there's anything that deals with harming another person or inflicting harm on another person, I advise against it. And again, if you ask, well, how do I protect myself? There are ways to protect yourself that doesn't include hurting another person or harming another person or causing another person ill will or any bad things to happen. Like, listen, I've made some enemies, okay? I made quite a few. And you don't see me, like, doing reversal things and having their attacks being mirrored back and reflected back on them. Nope. I'm not gonna do that. When somebody tries to send me something or attacks me on the astral realm, you know what I do? On the astral realm, because this happens a lot, there's a certain person that likes to send certain entities my way, whether they're aware of it or not. I deal with it then and there on the astral realm. I kick its butt, and I go on and go about my day. I do my little defending, and then I carry on the day. I do my house cleansings. I have my barriers set up. And I make sure that stuff doesn't come in. I take my ritual baths, and I make sure that I'm cleansed. And if that's not enough, I go to my Reiki guy. I mean, there's no reason for other people to hurt other people. It's just, I don't know. It's part of humanity that frustrates me, because it's like, why must you get revenge or hurt another person, or, you know what I mean? It's like, we should be past this, but we're not. There's so much hate in the world, and I don't want to add to it. Do I talk a lot of shit? Yes, I do. I'll be the first to admit that. I talk a lot of shit, but my actions speak louder than my words. So I guess the lesson is we have tools, we have our own upbringings, we have our own rituals. Whether you're in witchcraft or not, you can have daily rituals and whatnot. And knowledge, it's what you do with those things is what's gonna make ya or break ya, put you on the high vibration or the low vibration. And in this case, they had their resources and did negative things with them, which is why they are more on the lower end of frequency. And yeah, I mean, there's not really much to talk about. If you go back to our Lights of Midnight season 1, videos, which they're more audio because there's no video. You can listen to them anywhere. But we have them on YouTube, but we do have a witchcraft segment on there where we have a witch and we talk about this stuff. So you can refer back to that, or you can refer to my channel. You can refer back to Lamp. That's what we call Lights of Midnight. We call it Lamp for short. You can go to Chastity's Luminary Luna Beams, her Appalachian, or our Appalachian Nightmare. We talk all about frequencies, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about energy, vibrations, and or frequencies. So, guys, I hope you were able to keep up, because I don't even know if I was able to keep up with myself. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I will see you again tomorrow with another case. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching, and peace out.
Follow me. Hunted